see the Spirit fixing things again. Hallelujah to the Lamb upon the throne. I see Jesus seated on the throne. I see his angels ascending everywhere. Oh, I see the Spirit fixing things again. Hallelujah to the Lamb upon the throne. I see Jesus seated on the throne. I see his angels ascending in every nation. I see the Spirit fixing lives again. Hallelujah to the Lamb upon the throne. Emmanuel, 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 Emmanuel. I see. Okoyokoba. Emmanuel, 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 Emmanuel. Oyo boni amebo kyoto. Esemina bakwali adebete. Emmanuel, 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 Emmanuel.
Okay.
Emmanuel, 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 Emmanuel.
في السماء قبيلة ما في السماء قبيلة ما قبيلة ما في السماء قبيلة ما في السماء قبيلة ما قبيلة ما في السماء شلكاوي ما في السماء شلكاوي ما شلكاوي ما في السماء بننط سوا في السماء بننط سوا بننط سوا في السماء بننط سوا في السماء بننط سوا بننط في السماء هللويا معنا في السماء هللويا معنا هللويا معنا في السماء بنشوف يسوع في السماء بنشوف يسوع بنشوف في السماء بنشوف يسوع في السماء بنشوف يسوع في السماء بنلم سوا في السماء بنلم سوا بنلم في السماء بنلم سوا بنلم سوا في السماء هللويا معنا في السماء هللويا معنا هللويا معنا في السماء هللويا معنا في السماء هللويا معنا في السماء.
Please the mic. Ghana Men Fellowship, EPCG Men Fellowship. We are the men of God. Now that we are dealing with men in action. Men action. Action now. We are the men of God. Ready? Sing. We are the men of God. We are the men of God. We wash our clothes. We are the men of God. We are clothes in the blood of Jesus. We are the men of God. Of God. Hallelujah. We are Thank you. Sit down. Once again, we are coming to you live from the Dela Chapel of the Evangelical Presbyterian Church, Ghana, Hupoji, for the official opening, which is yet to end. The theme for this conference is African Presbyterian Men in Action Against Climate Change. May I, as I indicated earlier, may I invite the chairman of African Fifth Actors Network on Climate Justice, in no less a person than our moderator of the Evangelical Presbyterian Church Ghana General Assembly, in the person of Right Reverend Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Bliss Agbeko, to make his presentation on the topic, the church's response to climate change, by the chairman. Okay, the church's response to climate change. Chairman.
Thank you very much. It is by grace that we are together and we do what we have all agreed to do to mitigate or act against climate change to the glory of God. As a church, the people of God, it's always necessary to have the theological foundation to what we do, to get people moving along with you, for your church members to agree and see the sense in what you want to lead them to do. You must give them the theological foundations, so that when they see it being spoken by the Bible and you giving them accurate interpretations, they see it as the voice of God and they will willingly do what you call them to do. Therefore, what I intend to do is to bring up this theme: care for creation, a divine ministry of the church. Care for creation, a divine ministry of the church. I intend to give theological support or foundation to this drive of African Presbyterian Men in Action Against Climate Change. One time I talked about the need for the church to be seriously involved in protecting our environment, doing everything, if possible, to reverse this climate issue. Somebody told me, but we cannot leave preaching and teaching, we cannot leave other works of ministry to do what government should be doing. And I said, what are you talking about? What do you mean by government should be doing? We are part of government. And so I realized that some church members, if you don't support your claims or your leadership trend with biblical foundations, they don't take it serious. And so this is what I want us to do, and to know that care for the creation in which we find ourselves is a divine ministry for us all. From Psalm 24 verse 1, we read that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. We are stewards, not owners. We are caretakers, not proprietors. Our scope of responsibility covers the Christian as a person, the environment as our habitation, and sanitation as our culture and value. For the Lord your God walks in the midst of your camp to deliver you and give your enemies over to you. Therefore, your camp shall be holy, and he may see no unclean thing among you and turn away from you. Deuteronomy 23, verse 14b. Cleanliness attracts God's presence. God has established in the holy book that the earth and all therein, including you and I, we are God's. He owns us. He is the creator. We are told in Genesis 1 verse 1, in the beginning God created heavens and the earth. In verse 24 of the same chapter, Genesis 1, God commanded the land to produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creatures that move along the ground, the wild animals, each according to its kind. And it was so. God created nature, animals, and humans, male and female. He created them. As the creator, God owns all things that exist in nature. What we are trying to establish to let our members and all those we deal with who believe in the teachings or doctrines of the Bible that God owns us. He owns everything. And whatever we are enjoying or using, we hold in trust. He placed a law or is given a mandate. According to Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 to 28, which earlier speakers have already mentioned, God created man in his own image. Male and female, he created us to rule over everything he has made. Take note that God's intention for making us after he created everything around is that human beings should rule over everything he has made. In Genesis chapter 2 verse 15, as the earlier speaker said, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Nature was created before human beings. Before humans were created, all that was necessary for life and living were made available. God blessed the man and woman and gave them his mandate. The mandate is, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. This is the mandate given us, human beings. Humans were mandated to be stewards of nature, to take care, that is, to tend to nature and protect. We are to take care, we are to nature, and to protect nature that God has given us, of what God has entrusted to humans. In Leviticus chapter 25, verse 23, we are reminded that the earth is still the Lord's. So even if you own a piece of land, whether you bought it with money or is gifted to you, is still for God. So you cannot use that piece of land anyhow without considering the future generation that will come after you. So the Lord said, the land is mine, and you are but aliens and my tenants. And that is point of interest, that wherever you are, whatever size of land you possess, you are an alien on that land. You are a tenant of God on that property you claim as yours. So as aliens, you know that one day you will leave it and go where God will welcome you. And as tenants, you must keep that property the way the owner will be pleased with you. Because if you are a bad tenant, the owner of the land can eject you. So you must always be a good tenant. And remember, you are alien. And so you cannot possess it forever. So do the best you can at any given time so that posterity will praise you. Note, the word rule denotes responsible stewardship and care, the proper exercise and authority over what is placed under your care, not to abuse or exploit. Stewardship is not ownership. It denotes accountability. So God, the Lord of the land, has made rules governing his property, of which we are stewards and tenants, temporal residents. Even in times of war, nature is to be respected. War was to be waged with the environment in mind. Forests or nature were to be respected and not destroyed. Deuteronomy 20, verse 19 to 20 says, when you lay siege to a city for a long time, fighting against it to capture it, do not destroy its trees by putting an axe to them, because you can eat their fruit. So if you destroy them, you will be found wanting when the time of need comes. Do not cut them down. Are the trees of the forest people that you should besiege them? However, you may cut down trees you know are not fruit trees, and use them to build siege works until the city at war falls. Long before humans understood the interconnectedness of humanity, animals, plants, and weather patterns, God the Creator urged humans to respect and protect all of nature, so that it may go well with us and we may live long lives. In recent times, climate change is sounding the alarm that unrestrained human activity will impact the quality of human life on the planet Earth. God promises to reward us if we follow the rules that govern the use of his property. Leviticus 26, verse 3 to 5. If you follow my decrees and are careful to obey my command, I will send you rain in its season, and the ground will yield its crop, and the trees their fruit. Your threshing will continue until grape harvest, and grape harvest will continue until planting, and you will eat all the food you want and live in safety in your land. Note 2. We are to use this earth and its resources with the next generation in mind. We are not the last generation, and so we must not and dare not use up everything or trash what remains, leaving nothing for the future generation. In all these things, there is the issue of sustainability. As a believer, respect and protect nature and plant trees to renew the earth. So our activities, wherever we are found, is to be renewing the earth, planting trees. Whatever you take off, try to replace. God handed over a beautiful creation as a gift to humanity to take care of. That is how God created everything, and after he has made it all, he handed it to human beings to manage and account for. If it was so, the creation was beautiful, awesome, and perfect, that God himself was pleased with what he has made. And so God said, behold, it was good. The creation was good. What do you do to a gift? Because this good creation was gifted to human beings. Question is, what do you do to a gift? I think every gift that you accept, knowing source and who is giving it to you, the best you do is to treasure it. You place value on it. You cherish it. You do not trash it. If you trash a gift, it means you hate the giver. So if you trash the earth, you trash the environment, it's a dishonor to God. But if you value the environment, take good care of it to protect and replenish it, it also reveals your love and honor to God. The Bible and sanitation. When God began to deal with the people of ancient Israel, he kept reminding them that they were to be holy because he, their God, is holy. Leviticus 27:8. God said, consecrate yourselves and be holy. I am the Lord your God. Keep my decrees and follow them. I am the Lord who makes you holy. Holy means set apart, not for common use. Then in Deuteronomy 23 verse 12 to 14, God instructed the Israelites, designate a place outside the camp where you can go and relieve yourself. As part of your equipment, have something to dig with. And when you relieve yourself, dig a hole and cover your excrement. For the Lord your God moves about in your camp to protect you and deliver your enemies to you. Your camp must be holy, so that he will not see among you anything indecent or filthy, and turn away from you. God moves in the midst of his people. The divine presence is the privilege of Christians. Remember, though not physically visible, the Lord promised to be with us always. So what the Lord expects from us, we must also make sure we maintain that always. It's a clean and beautiful environment. It's your contribution to what God has given you. God moves in your camp to protect you and deliver your enemies to you. Your number one enemy in this world are not human beings. Your number one enemy are diseases. And these diseases comes from filth and insanitary conditions. So if you want to kick out your enemies, the disease-causing environment. Keep your environment clean and beautiful, because that is how the enemy creeps in and takes an hour. Your number are diseases that comes from filth and insanitary conditions. Note 3. As a Christian, your camp is your home. Your camp is your neighborhood. Your camp is your country. And there should be no indecency in your camp. Remember, your camp is your home. So keep your personal home clean. Your camp is your neighborhood, your immediate environment. Keep it also clean. Your camp is your country. Keep your country clean. And therefore, there should be no indecency in your camp. So you understand that the camp, home, environment, your country, and wherever you find yourself, you must keep it clean. Keep your home, your neighborhood, and your country clean. In Psalm 34 verse 7, it says, "The angels of the Lord encamp around those who fear him and delivers them." Because of the angelic presence around God's children, that is you and I and others we care about, God has every right to demand that your dwelling and surroundings be holy and clean. Holy unto the Lord should be one of our slogans as Christians. Anything unsightly, unclean, ugly, repulsive, disgusting, filthy, etc. are not supposed to be found in your camp. All these are characteristics of refuge, garbage, and waste that humans create. They are not part of the natural environment that God handed over to human beings. God did not hand over to us an environment which was full of refuse, garbage, or waste. Those things are man-made. Let's keep them off and keep God's gift to us clean and ever beautiful. They are not of the natural environment that God handed over to humans. They are a result of human activity. No Christian man or woman, boy or girl, should live or sell in dirty and filthy surroundings. Do not live with filth. Caution and advocacy. According to Ghana Health Service analysis of the disease situation, it says that all of outpatient diseases are caused by poor environmental sanitation. Food vendors should be educated to reduce the use of plastic wrap food. Government should consider banning plastic bags or reducing their use. It has been done in some African countries. It can be done here too in Ghana. Government and industries must promote the manufacture and use of strong and reusable paper bags. There must be strict enforcement of sanitation codes. Municipal and district assembly should hire more sanitation officers to promote and ensure sanitation bylaws. Sanitation courts must work and punish those who litter and pollute their communities and their environment, because they help create diseases that will destroy the community. Illegal mining activities. In Ghana, we are faced with a situation we call galamsey. They also result in severe environmental degradation in recent times. Forest reserves are being depleted by the day, and our water bodies that were once sources of potable water are now too contaminated for use. Churches, schools, and community leaders, as the stewards that we are, must create awareness against activities like galamsey, open defecation, and indiscriminate dumping of refuse, and do everything possible to mitigate the environmental degradation and ensure clean environment. We all have a duty to live a clean and healthy environment for future generations. Play your part. Care for creation. It is the divine ministry of the church and your ministry as a believer. We in the Evangelical Presbyterian Church, Ghana, as a church, we shall use special liturgical occasions and celebrations to plant trees and flowers in our home, environment, or neighborhood. We have the plans, and it's far advanced as we continue to conscientize, educate our people that we must convert activities that we do also into nature care, whereby for baptismal occasions, we will also plant tree or flowers in the church environment, in the home of those who experience that grace. Confirmation, when we confirm our students or candidates per their number, we help them also plant some number of trees per their number. So using those activities, you do that, you are confirmed, or after the confirmation ad, the group is made to go and plant trees. It helps enrich the environment naturally. Marriages, where the couple will also be made to plant trees for each other. So you plant 2 trees, one for me, one for the spouse. The spouse also plant 2 trees, one for you, one for you. By so doing, it becomes that you together planted trees on your wedding day or on your marriage day. You can also do that. Then anniversaries, like the EP Church, we recently last year celebrated 175 years of our birth to Ghana. We engage in tree planting activities in some of our churches, and also we went to Kweche Secondary School, where I attended my alma mater, to plant trees, and it was great fun, you know. And then we use special days, be it national days, like May Day in Ghana. May Day is for workers, and we have holiday. So those in particular areas, we organize May Day, we do cleaning activities, we plant trees, and by so doing, we are also helping keep nature alive and being replenished. And using world occasions, let's say World Health Day, or what do you call it, World Sustenance Day, whatever it is, we plant tree. We in the EP Church feel called to do this, and we are fully in to this. I pray that God bless us and bless all of us, that we can share in common various activities that will make tree planting not work, but tree planting becomes a joy and a pleasant moment. God bless us and keep the African Presbyterian men in action against climate change alive, that we all do this and continue to do it, even for those that come after us who also continue in it, to the glory of God, for the safety of our planet Earth, for our joy and praise. Amen.
Thank you, moderator, for your inspiring address for this session. We are so much grateful to the biblical scenario that you attach to us as stewards of God's creation. Stand up for Jesus, ye soldiers of the cross. Lift high his royal banner, it must not suffer loss. From victory unto victory, his army he shall lead, till every foe is vanquished and Christ is Lord indeed. Let us as men rise and sing this song to invite our guest speaker for the second session. Stand up for Jesus, ye. Action now. Deputy Director of Climate Change and Environment at the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology. We invite you to the stage to continue with your address. Thank you. It is a
of the cross, lift high his royal banner, it must not suffer loss. From victory unto victory, his army shall he lead, till every soul is vanquished and Christ is Lord indeed. Thank you very much. It's a privilege and honor once again to stand before you and to talk about the approach that we in Ghana are employing to tackle the challenges of climate change in our time. And thank you very much, moderator, for the theological background and that you have graciously expounded. We are much more grateful and enlightened by the wisdom and nuggets that you've shared. So, what is climate change? We really do talk about climate change as a development challenge. So, the climate as we know it is consistently changing, mainly due to the fact that human beings are exerting more pressure on the natural resources or the natural assets of the earth. We are overly exploiting the resources for our use, and we have a development definition that says that to be successful, you have to overly acquire more resources in order to escape poverty. So it is a change that is directly or indirectly due to human activity, which we call the anthropogenic factors. The major elements of atmosphere which changes are temperature, rainfall, and other cycles of life. Particularly for us, what we experience is temperature and rainfall changes or variability, which is that there are increased precipitations and which affects rainfall patterns. And so where we used to expect rainfall, we used to rely on rainfall, the cycles of it for our livelihood sources, we find that they are not as predictable as they used to be, and which culminates in losses of our agricultural produce, which is the mainstay of human sustainability. But just as well, it also destroys properties. Heat also affects human temperatures. It increases when the temperature increases or lowers rapidly. It creates the environment necessary for microbial or bacteria to fester, and then they cause diseases. And so increasingly, we are also seeing that where we used to have that miracle drug of antibiotics being able to cure, infections, increasingly we continue to have microbial resistance, and the drugs that we used to be able to use to cure them are no more working. And so all of these are attributed to climate change. So these are examples of natural systems that contribute to the release of what we call greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which also is the main cause of climate change. Can we go to the next slide? Yes. Then there are examples that I'm showing for the artificial or man-made systems, industrial, processes that release huge carbon monoxide gases, and there you can also see the petroleum extraction industries, also gas flaring, but also our vehicles, also contribute to fumes that we generate. And of course, when we cut down the forest for our own uses as well, we are all contributing to the natural process. Forests are carbon sinks. They absorb and trap the carbon gases in the earth, and that natural process also saves us from, having emissions in the environment. Here I show a climate change is real and it's already happening. The clerk of the EP Church General Assembly reminded us this morning that where we didn't used to experience floods in Ho, the city where we are, a couple of days ago, there was flooding in Ho, which was, never been experienced. And these are, effects of climate change attributed to the way we alter the environment and how the environment, the natural environment, also responds to the changes that we have done. The weather obviously is getting warmer. We have long periods of warm temperatures, high temperatures and intense heat, particularly in concretized cities. Those of us who live in big cities would attest to this, that the airflow is not as cooling as it used to be. There are heat islands. Our rooms get unbearably warm, and then in turn, we also employ air conditioners, which also, although we are being cooled in our rooms, it's also contributing more and exacerbating the situation. So that is not also the solution to the broader global goods preservation. Then there is an onset and duration of seasons are changing, as I've mentioned. There's a high occurrence of extreme weather events, windstorms, torrential rains, just like the example that has been mentioned. I showed two maps. I don't know if it's clear enough. Can you go back? I showed two maps. One depicting, a 20-year range between 1981 to 2010, both maps, and to show the maximum temperature areas in, and you see that in the savanna areas, they are experiencing extreme heat, and parts of the western, but it lowers as it comes down south. And still, that is not the ideal temperatures, because it didn't used to be so warm, but that is what is happening now. And then rainfall variability is also being experienced. If you look at the map, there's a purple, blue areas. You would see that they are experiencing less and less rainfall. You can see that in the north and along the eastern coast, we are experiencing less and less rainfall. And if the situation is not reversed, we are projected that this situation is going to continue. It is what is going to continue. So that is why the suggestion that we should plant more trees, which would act as, counter sinks and then improve the precipitation and increase rainfall, is very important. And thank you for that, moderator, for your suggestion on concrete actions that we as individuals and the church can undertake to improve the situation. Okay. So this is a temperature heat map. So we used red to depict the intensity of heat, or we measure it in degrees Celsius. So some last year or this year, when it was a bit warm around May, we recorded temperatures up to 42 degrees, and then the average human temperature, even when you are sick and you go to the hospital, when you are 36, 37, it means that you are experiencing very high fever. And imagine when it is 42 degrees, you cannot stand, outside of your room. You have to look for shelter, right? And so, but of course, along the western coast, which we call the forest belt, you will see that although those are experiencing heat, but they are not as intense as the other areas. And then the rainfall, the mean rainfall patterns that we have, and this is also projected, but we are also relying on a 20-year cycle of data. So you'll see that the purple areas through bluish are going to experience low rainfall. Okay, but of course, when you go to the high red, it means that you are experiencing more rainfall, or variable intense rainfall. And you will see that along the western coast, which is also the forest belt, that counterbalances the ecosystem. Is that all right? Okay, thank you. So next slide, please. Again, what are the main climate challenges that we experience in Ghana? But again, for policy making purposes, we often do not rely on the challenges alone, but we try to turn the challenges and see the opportunities that are inherent in it. In the morning, I said that Africa, contributes, despite all the things that we are doing, we contribute far less, and the science backs it. We contribute just about 4% of the total greenhouse gas emissions globally. However, our ability to adapt and mitigate against the threats are so few, and so we often do feel, or we often do receive the brunt of the extreme weather events. So it affects Africa disproportionately as opposed to the Western and then the Northern geographical nations. Climate change mainly is driven by greenhouse gas emissions. When we are talking about greenhouse gas emissions, we are talking about all the gases that contribute to the depletion of the. Say again, sir. You were saying something. You were saying the ozone layer. Fantastic. So right, but there are a range of gases, but carbon monoxide is the most prominent. So often we either say greenhouse gases or we say carbon, but it encompasses also methane and other forms of gases, although carbon monoxide is the most prominent. In Ghana, climate change could have large human impacts as well as make development goals more challenging. So whilst government is
Hi, please, I wish to respectfully appeal to you that you take note of your concerns so that after the presentation, there will be room for questions, responses, and comments. Please. So, continue, sir.
So government invests in infrastructure, individuals and communities also invest in infrastructure, but we are one climate challenge away from having all our investments wiped away. And often we say that you are also one health challenge away from plunging you back into poverty. So all the gains that you make, all the resources that you make, sometimes when these climate induced events happened, you find out that all your investments, all your life's work, all your resources that you've invested are, challenged. However, the global negotiations, which often happens during the COP process, the Conference of Parties of the UN, FCCC, are trying to reduce the causes of mitigation and address the effects, adaptation to climate change. We are often, because we do not have the base and the fiscal space, you hear governments often talk about fiscal space, we don't have the fiscal space that allows us to take care of education, health, but also to, climate-proof our infrastructure. We often rely on external international flows to climate finance for adaptation in particular, which is what is important for us as Africans, because we don't emit too much, we don't have to place more premium on mitigation efforts. So we have to do much more of adaptation. So in fact, adaptation means how do you adapt to the effects of climate change? Achieving food security by channeling actions of adaptation and land use into green economy, securing electricity supply and rural access with renewables instead of fossil fuel generation mechanisms, but also capturing new economic opportunities, including biofuels, light manufacturing of efficient lighting systems, and avoiding the industrial trap that developed economies are already in. Next. So what are the sectoral climate change challenges that we are experiencing? We are experiencing them across multiple sectors, including agriculture, water, coastal areas, health, energy, our cities, and their infrastructure. In agriculture, the change in precipitation and temperatures contributes to the drastic reduction of yields, and so most farmers are, either abandoning food crops and then going into cash crops, where they are able to increase their economic earning potential. But just as well, shifting from food crops into cash crops does reduce the food security potential of countries and would in turn increase the cost of food, but also, contribute to malnutrition, in fact, for vulnerable populations. Water, the variability in precipitation causes increased water stress, but let me also acknowledge that it is not just precipitation that is increasing water stress. It is also the galamsey that the moderator in his presentation has mentioned, the pollution of our rivers, when we go to mine for gold and using unsustainable mining practices, including mercury, which poisons our rivers and water sources, and underground water even is also a big challenge. Coastal areas, because of the rising sea levels, because we are in the Volta region, I must mention that also there are some communities in the Volta region along the Keita and Anlo areas that are experiencing high coastal erosion, sometimes within a year up to about 60 meters of erosion are recorded. People's homes and livelihoods are lost, and in the sea, if you go to the other areas, there are cultural significant places that are now underwater because of coastal erosion. The sea taking over land, people have to vacate their cultural homes, people have to, sometimes it even results in death because, of course, when the waves come, the tide comes in high at night and they are unfortunate to be in their beds, it does also swallow them. And there are incidences of this that we know of which are unfortunate, but we commiserate with the communities as well. Health change increases risk of malnutrition, and I've attributed it to the agricultural sector already. Poor sanitation, of course, increases the risk to diseases and natural disasters as well. Poor sanitation is attributed to a lot of microbial infections. It's also attributed a lot to most of the underlying morbidity issues that are recorded in the country, that are avoidable only if we can keep our sanitary conditions in pristine, conditions. Energy, droughts endanger hydropower supply. So if you have been in this country, and most of you have been in this country for long, will recall that we experienced some scares in the country when the Akosobo Dam was, not producing enough water because of drought, but also because of other factors, and then we needed to, ensure that we are energy sustainable by employing other means. Recently, government has taken the decision also to add nuclear power to the energy mix to be able to ensure that we are not energy dependent or energy poor. All of these are issues because of the droughts or the long periods of droughts, or inadequate water supply that we often experience, or the intensity that is the shortfall of the intensity of rainfall that contributes to the shortfall of water that is needed for the generation of hydropower. And cities and infrastructure, of course, the way we build our cities, concreting our cities, which means that often when there is water, the water don't easily, flow as it would have. And now, because we are also cutting away the nature-based systems, including mangroves, which are dumping, refuses into lagoons or silting them in order to build houses, on water channels and waterways. When we do that and obstruct the way of water, there is a lot of back channeling that contributes to the flooding in the city. But also the concreting means that, energy is trapped in the concrete and they do not easily escape. And so we experience much more intense heat within our environment. And this is much attributed to the way we develop our cities and human habitats. The next. So what are we doing based on all of these description of challenges? How do we intend? Because we know this, how do we respond to this challenge? Of course, for government, we employ, the same tools. Governments around the world, governments in Africa employ similar tools. We use policies, programs, and project and plans to be able to tackle this. We also try to deploy climate smart technologies. What are the technologies that people are using to adapt or to mitigate against this climate change? And then we also endeavor to engage, and these are the engagements that are most important to us, because we could be doing all the policies, but once the citizens or the community are not, going along with government, then most of it is not happening. So for us, public education, awareness creations, and sensitizations, including engagements with special interest groups, are very important. Particularly, the way we also develop the land, the way we consume from the land, the way we develop all other actions. But of course, resource mobilization to also improve or resource the actions and plans. If these does not happen, none of our actions will be fruitful. So what are examples of the policies and programs and plans that we have? Next slide. Most of this flows from the coordinated program of economic and social development policies that is developed as a vision for Ghana. Then we have the low carbon development strategy, we have the climate change policy. We have a number of policies that are developed from different sectors, and most of these sectors have also included climate dimensions to their plans. But of course, since 2015, when the world went to the COP in Paris or France, and the Global West promised $100 billion a year to resource, countries or countries, low income, least developed, developing countries, to be able to finance their plans and policies. Each country or each party of the Conference of Parties was asked to develop national determined contributions as the resource book or the plan where you harmonize all of these policy actions and say that these are the most important sectors and strategies for us to tackle our climate dependency issues. And this is also what Ghana has done. We have the we have the INDC, the Independent National Determined Contribution, which is now updated from 2020 to 2030. The updated nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. What are the main areas, therefore, that are contained in this national determined contributions? We have contributions across adaptation, and we also have contributions around mitigation. The investment areas under adaptation include sectors on agriculture and food security, sustainable forest resource management, resilient infrastructure in the built environment, climate change and health, water resources, gender, and vulnerable. The strategic areas are to improve measures for sustainable land use, employ climate resilient strategic infrastructure, and also to focus on equitable social development. The mitigation actions have strategies under different sectors, particularly energy, transport, agriculture, forest, and other land users, waste, and industry, as these sectors are mostly the high emission sectors for the country. We want to scale up renewable energy penetration by 10%, to the mostly rural areas who are not connected to the grid. We want to promote clean rural household lighting by phasing out incandescent light bulbs, which are energy consuming. We want to expand adoption of market-based cleaner cooking solutions so that we also rely less on wood fuels, and also our need to cut down the forest. We also want to double our energy efficiency by improving it by 20% in our power plants. So shifting or avoiding the use of high fossil fuel generating plants, including coal or petroleum products, to power our energy grid. Transport, to scale up sustainable mass transportation so that we reduce our dependence on single-use transport, including single-use vehicles. Most of us in the city, you find that a lot more people are using their own vehicles. And then because we have an inefficient public transport system, people much more are comfortable when they are using their own vehicles. So about 80% of the people who travel on our routes are using single-use vehicles. And the traffic, 80% of the traffic are caused by people using single-use transport systems. And the 20% of the traffic are carrying 80% of the people. Right? But those are the 80% are traveling on 20% of the public transport. So agricultural, forestry, and other land users, to promote sustainable utilization of forest resources through the REDD+, reduction in emission, degradation activities, and then also waste, particularly plastic waste. Part of the flooding has been attributed to indiscriminate dumping of plastic material or plastic waste. We have a situation where it's also not, we consider Ho as one of the cleanest cities in Ghana, also because you go to other cities and you realize that the aesthetic beauty of the environment has been diminished by the indiscriminate dumping of particularly single-use plastics. Sometimes what we call the Ewiasiesum or the Banku robbers, the Lonka robbers, they are so cheap, and that when you go to say buy wache or buy food from the street vendor, they would put the food in one rubber, tie it, put it in another, and then put it in another, So, but when you go home, you don't have any other reuse for it. So what you do is you discard it, and these often end up in our drains, clogging them, choking them, and then creating back channels for rainwater, which in turn comes to flood our homes as well. It may not affect us because, of course, maybe we have, we are living on the hill, but those who are living downstream are often affected. And then when we pass, because of the choke and filth, we say they are dirty. But in effect, most of this is, just the impact of our, indiscriminate behavior upstream. And so we have to also be mindful that our actions, although they may not affect us directly, goes to affect other communities, particularly vulnerable communities, directly. And we have to be mindful, and we have to improve our own practices to help other people to be able to do that. Of course, mitigation actions also around energy. What projects? I wanted to show some projects that governments have embarked on, and so I believe that we would share this presentation with you, so I'll go through quickly. Projects around increasing yields, projects around building irrigation wells and using pumps for irrigation. We have projects in agriculture that include, improving crop and land practices, including organic manure preparation and land rotation. And under energy sector, government has also embarked on projects including rural electrification, providing lighting and power for 2 to 3 days, to release the pressure on the national grid, cost-effective alternative grid connection to include PTs and solar and other, renewable energy sources, cost-effective alternatives with longer lifespan by phasing out incandescent light bulbs and then using LED lights, and then growing sunflowers and processing them for biodiesel as opposed to fossil fuels that include, petroleum products, coal, and natural gas. Projects also around forest and fuelwood, by introducing clean cooking stoves. When you use the improved stoves, you are likely to use less energy, and you may save about 50% of fuelwood that will be needed for cooking. We also have introduced fast-growing tree species, and in the recent years, we have also embarked on mass campaigns for greening Ghana by setting aside a day where we provide seedlings and seedlings for people to plant trees in their communities. A recent one, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources embarked on the campaign, said they had planted about 10 million trees, and this wouldn't have been possible without the commitment of society as a whole, including faith-based organizations, churches, schools, and other institutions. So public education, awareness creation, and sensitization. We do regular engagements like this, and then if I would like to also invite you, particularly our Pan-African members, that because we have this arrangement under the AU where we do South-South cooperation, and we often engage with our other African countries where we exchange, resources and ideas. I invite you to also use that approach, if it's as far as it's practicable, to be able to deepen our own capacities and learning, so that we can also provide resources for communities, but as well as institutions that we are in. We use these venues, town hall meetings. We sometimes go to conferences, but then the most important ones for us are community engagements and then targeted engagements such as this. And then, of course, because we've come here in this nice parish, I'm sure that because GTV is here, GTV would carry it, but these are not the ones that would offer an opportunity for exchange and deepening of ideas, but only to create the awareness. And so all of this mix is important for us to be able to reach the communities that need the solutions and tools to be able to adapt to their own needs. Of course, we have, if you go to our website at one of our agencies' website, the Environmental Protection Agency of Ghana, we have a climate change data hub where all our learnings, all our knowings, all our evidence, all our tools that we've tried and tested in the field, we provide them on that climate hub. So if you want to improve your own learning or knowing about it, you are invited to visit the EPA data hub, which is climatedatahub.gh.com, and then you would find out more tools and resources for your needs. I wouldn't have done any justice to this gathering if I do not, of course, also share how each of us can contribute to address the challenges of climate change. So what can each of us do? If we are engaged in agric, you can do miscropping, mulch instead of organic fertilizers, agrochemical practices to control weeds instead of inorganic chemicals. If you are building, we employ you. We have in this nice parish which has holes in bricks as the main, building. So we do not need to put in, air conditions that would contribute to global warming. So use louver blades so that when the weather is warm and nice, you can just open and have fresh breeze. Don't build on waterways. It's important. If you see anybody building on waterways, employ community actions and then stop it. Health, cleanliness, and the moderator this morning has talked a lot about cleanliness, so I will not belabor the point. Water resources, reduce pollution of water bodies and promote water harvesting if you must and if you can. Waste management, we would encourage that you compost. We know that we do not have the systems in place to be able to, for the municipality to, manage segregated waste. So you may be able to segregate your waste in your house, but then we realize that the municipality trucks and boiler containers will come and then they'll pour all your segregated. But of course, what you can do is to reduce your organic waste by composting, and then the other hard plastic and metals, you can, have the municipality collect that. But composting is a very much more efficient way because there are a lot uses for composting in the household, including to, fertilize your plants and crops or trees that you may build, that you may plant in your homes. There are other home-based technologies like biogas, that would give you, supplement your energy requirements at your home. And then also avoid burning. When you burn, of course, the byproduct is, carbon monoxide. And when you change your oil, please don't pour it down the drain. Take it to the auto parts. They collect them. We have a mechanism, and we are enrolling more and more auto part dealers on them, that when you have the dirty oil, we collect them and safely dispose them. And then of course, forestry, plant more trees. We cannot overemphasize the importance of trees as the lungs of the earth. So please, by all means, if I've learned anything today, it's the number of ways that we can incentivize ourselves to be able to plant more trees and make it much more joyful, and also to sustain, the air, the cleanliness of the air and the environment. Of course, use clean cook stoves and use efficient appliances. The Energy Commission introduced a star rating for most appliances, so the more energy efficient it is, it gives it a 5-star. So when you go out to buy appliances, please look out for the star rating of the Energy Commission, and often appliances are required. It's been made a requirement for them to label it, and the Standards Authority ensures that this is done. So please look out for it, and then make sure that you are investing in much more energy efficient appliances. Of course, I've talked about the transport. If you can, take the bus, or you can ride a bicycle, or you can walk. Please avoid single-use, overly reliant on single-use transport. Thank you very much.
It is not time now for questions, but let us once again give a loud applause to our guest speaker. For your information, because of the poor clarity and the illegibility of the characters on the screen, I've given his PowerPoint presentation to Foster Agoche, Brother Foster Agoche, to be put on the Pan-African Presbyterian Men's Fellowship platform, as well as our Men's Fellowship platform in Ghana here, so that you can have a look at it. Even I'm sure by now it's gone, so that you can be having a look at it. But then if there are questions, and let them be brief, please we are asking that you give us only how many questions because of time?
You decide.
Okay, 10 questions. One per one, straightforward, no bend, no curve. So let me number you. Okay, number one, number two at the back there, number three, number four, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, 10, 11. Okay. So you are 12. 12. Okay, 13. 13. So 13 questions. After that, no other question again. So number 1.
So three questions, and then I answer, and then another 3, like that. 3 questions, I answer, another 3. Yes.
So number 1.
Okay, thank you for presentation. My name is Bill from South Sudan. It is very nice presentation. My question is that I don't know whether I missed the statistics, because I know that environmental education and environmental awareness for human beings is the most difficult part. Have you ever generated baseline data on how your people comply on the environmental awareness or environmental education, or you just start and give them the material and you go in? So this is my question. And after that, did you make an evaluation by doing some studies after you make an evaluation? Because I have heard that you made for the last 20 years. And during that period, have you made any statistics on how our people in Ghana, they respond to the environment? Thank you.
Would you like to say 3 sets?
3.
Okay, 2. Number 2.
Thank you, Program Director. It's Titus Baloi, South Africa. I don't know if I will have a lot of questions or just statements. But since we're limited to 1, I will just want to know the split between external and non-external funding for your NDCs. The split between external and internal funding, whether you're able to fund your NDC from sources in Ghana, or you need third parties. And the rationale for that is, for the past 8 years, we have had commitment for 100 billion per annum funding, especially for developing countries. And I think we have seen more than $30 billion. We're supposed to be moving closer to $1 trillion, but the money is not coming through. The last one, perhaps, it's for all of us, and primarily for the clergy. We instructed to be fruitful and multiply. Currently, we have overpopulation, and it's one of the major causes of climate change, because we have more and more people to feed. We have less and less yields on our agricultural productions. We're not able to feed the people. I know you have indicated that we need to try to go organic. When we're organic, it means we're producing less over a much longer period than we're not able to feed these people. The last one, it's on the waste management and land management. What's the biblical approach to cremation? Can we still bury our people on the ground? Can we cremate? It's not for you, it's for the clergy. The last one, maybe it's for the clergy. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Number 3, but please let me plead with you that let your questions be precise, straight to the point, and brief. Third, number 3. So after this, I'll give the mic to him too.
Thank you very much indeed. My name's Wakayo Morira. I am from Kenya. My question is this. You mentioned about energy, and we all know across Africa how issues to do with energy are. What is the case for Ghana in terms of solar energy? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Let me do a reverse. What is the case for solar mix in Ghana? A lot used to be that our energy, we were highly reliant on energy, hydro energy, and for a very long time that used to be the dominant. But now, since we introduce thermal into the mix. Thermal energy has already surpassed the generation for the hydro. Now, the renewable sources of energy are just about 0.9%, and also because it is expensive to of course the renewable sources are emerging technologies, and the incentives in the country at the moment are not such that it's widespread for the vulnerable population groups. That is my guess on why the renewable resources, including solar, are just about 0.9% of the energy mix. But of course, government has taken the initiative to improve the energy mix by introducing nuclear. At the moment, we are at stage 2 of progress to introduce nuclear. The declaration has been made, the Nuclear Regulatory Authority has been set up, the guidelines and policy has been put in place, and it is at stage 3 that you can then go ahead and develop. So it probably, or it's much more probable that in a year's time, Ghana would start producing nuclear energy, and that's my way of answering that question. Sir, you were asking about the proportion of external funding to local. In the NDC, we talk about needing about $230 billion. We say much of that would be external funding, but that much of that external funding would also be realized through carbon market trading under the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. And who knows about, do we know about carbon trading? Okay, so imagine, carbon monoxide in a balloon, and then we say that the cost of the balloon is, the cost of that pollution or pollutant in the balloon is, say, $3. And if we continue to indulge in business as usual practices, we would provide about 10 of these balloons, which would be about $30. And then we say, okay, we do not want to continue in a business as usual scenario. So we want to sell that $30 worth of balloons to anybody who wants to use that to offset their own pollution, but then give us the technology and give us the money to be able to use technology to avoid polluting. So that is carbon trading. So the West, most of the West industries are trapped in, fossil fuel or dependent industries, and they have made a commitment to cut their emissions by half, but they cannot, most industries cannot just get up today or tomorrow and say that, look, we are closing down our industry. It will be an economic catastrophe. So they come to countries like Ghana, which says that, okay, we are, not so trapped in these industries. So we have this number of balloons that we would have, or this number of pollutants that we would have done by, say, burning fuel wood. So instead of burning fuel wood, we'll sell that pollution from the fuel wood to you, and then you give us the technology or the money to be able to transition from fuel wood to sustainable energy. So that is by way of carbon trading. So most of this external funding would be through carbon trading, and we've already started. And some of it would also be through implementing emission sinks and through our RED Plus strategy. And so that is also the proportion of external funding, which is all domestic actions, but the funding will be external. So it is not exactly, you see what I mean? It is not exactly that we are not wasting domestic money, but by implementing domestic actions to attract external funding. and that is the proportional mix. So you spoke about statistics. That yes, my God, we are a whole number of statistics. If we could be debating statistics every day, but you see these statistics. But if you want to know about whether we are cutting down on emissions, since our strategies, that's not it. But although we are emitting more, year on year, it is still so not significant. And most of our emission is in the energy and transportation industries. Okay.
Next set of the questions, number 4.
Thank you for the opportunity. Interestingly, the initial questioners have asked my questions, but I would rather come in a form of an appeal. The MC assured us that the director's presentation should be forwarded, and it's been done. But we want to appeal that of the General Assembly moderator's presentation also should kindly be forwarded to us so that we can go through. Thank you.
Number 5.
Yeah. Number 5. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Environmental Protection Agency, Environmental and Science and Technology. How are they working together? Because sometimes you see people go for Environmental Protection Agency, they get the permit, then they go there and go and do the wrong thing. So who is supervising others? Thank you.
Number 6. Please, during your presentation, at the last end, you mentioned that we should avoid burning of plastics. I'm used to that. I want to know whether we have to avoid inhaling the flame or there's any other cause. That's why you say we should not burn the plastics.
Over to you, Speaker. Responses to the next set of questions.
Okay. All right. The first one was a suggestion. It wasn't directed at me. But how is the Environmental Protection Agency working together with MESTI? Let me say, we are aware that we are not a perfect institution, and we must admit that. But we are very proud of our Environment Protection Agency. If I should hazard to say that for the agencies within the country, if I would rate, the Foods and Drugs Authority as the foremost, but environmental protection should be about second for the ability to attain the mandates that are set out. MESTI, of course, as a ministerial portfolio, is holding the policy holder for environment science, technology, and innovation within the sectors, to set the policies, to set the frameworks, to give guidance to the policy actors and agencies. Environmental Protection Agency, by their act, have certain specific mandates, including to safeguard the environment. And so they also have an enforcement unit and are able to do that. But of course, enforcement is also, a shared responsibility. And enforcement is only as effective as how the community members embrace the reasons or the rationale for the enforcement, and also contribute by reporting or actually, using local leaders or alternative disputes resolutions to be able to solve and avoid the reasons for these enforcement initiatives. So that's the balance between what the Environment Protection Agency would do and what the ministry does. The ministry would, gather evidence and then set policies for the Environment Protection Agency to implement. So the Environment Protection is an implementing agency. The ministry, of course, would show may also implement by showing, engaging in programs or doing demonstration projects, by implementing demonstration projects to show what is possible, so that for scale, the Environmental Protection Agency would institutionalize and scale it. Does that answer the question? So the ministry supervises the activities of the APA. That's right. Right. So why should you avoid burning? Yes. Also because, it's hazardous to your health. So don't inhale it. But even if you do not inhale it, it is also hazardous for the environment. It still releases into the atmosphere and alters the atmosphere's dynamics. It depletes the ozone layer. It causes these extreme weather events that we are talking about. It reduces humidity and precipitation. It's, at scale. So you may think that just at my household level, I'm just burning something small. But even if everybody indulges in that practice, then it is the scale and magnitude of that contributes to, the climatic events that we are talking about. Okay.
Please, we want to plead with you. We have time constraints. There is another speaker, high profile in our midst. We shall accept the next 3 set of questions, but the other next, let us suspend it just after this speaker. We combine it with the questions. Time constraints, we are pleading with you. So next set of questions, please. 1 question, precise, straight to the point. Otherwise, we cut you somewhere I don't like. 1 question, precise, straight to the point, brief. That is number 7. Okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Amo Osubudu, Team Ghana, Presbyterian Church of Ghana. I thank you very much. You have solved one problem for me about separating your waste. You give it to the assembly and they mix it up in that car. Now the composting will work for me. Please, just about 2 weeks ago, when I was listening to one engineer, Mahama, on the TV and radio, in fact, I did half here, half there, he said that very soon there will be no rains in Accra, but Accra will be flooded. So I said, how? That very day when I went to town, before I got home, a small stream which I used to cross every day with my small car couldn't cross the stream. It had only drizzled 20 minutes at Oyarifa, the base of the mountains there. I realized that what the engineer was saying is true. What can we do now so that we wouldn't wait for the 5 years when Engineer Mahama said Accra will be flooded when there is no rain? Thank you very much.
Mr. Owusu Budu just wants explanation. We live in the same area anyway. He doesn't know. The next.
Thank you very much. Samuel Akwete, my name, Evangelical Presbyterian Church, Ghana. It has become very clear that we cannot underestimate the harm that climate change is to bring. And we will need to be very focused and very deliberate, very purposeful to fight that. The moderator of General Assembly of the Evangelical Presbyterian Church have indicated the readiness of the church. And I'm very sure that all gathered here are prepared to do so. We will be ready to provide the human resource and the financial, but I want to find out what are some of the funding available from the government point of view that beyond our funding capacity we can access. Thank you.
Thank you. It will interest you to know that the boss, his boss, is the United Nations coordinator for the Adaptation Fund. Anyway, the last question for this session.
Thank you. Fred Kotoka is my name, Evangelical Presbyterian Church, Ghana. Now, we are to help the use the louver blades instead of sliding glasses. I saw it there. Using the louver instead of sliding. Now, in this modern Ghana or the world now, the youth are for the sliding. Whatever you say, they are for that. What will you do to educate them to understand, to help the climate change? And then also, what material, in your view, will you prefer for the stealing?
Okay, so let me take the last question first. Of course, we continue to sensitize and educate. For building material, the Standards Authority, and of course the architecture and building economists, they have their own recommendations, but then there's a building code, for the usage of the materials to use, and often there is a range of materials. But what we advocate for is much more environmental friendly and sustainable, materials. There are a range of them. Even you would see that some modern buildings employ thatch material to do that because it cools their building more. But you have to, this is something that you have to discuss with your building contractor. If you are going into building your own house, they would tell you that these are much more friendly environmental materials, and they know it. Often, the ones that are not sustainable are often also cheaper, but they tend to be much more expensive, in the long run. And so you have to make that choice. But we would always advocate, because we know that for windows, which are very much important for cooling and warming of your buildings, you need an adequate aeration. So if you are going to use louvers, you have the opportunity to regulate the rate and amount at which your room gets cooled, and then you are in control. And so we advocate much more for that. That look, there are other, besides louver blades, there are wooden blades, and then so you choose based on the aesthetic value of your buildings. Funding sources, the funding available even for governments, at last count and mapping, by about 502. So there's a broad landscape of funding sources. Okay, and then there's, of course, there are the bigger ones, and then there are the grants. But each of them often require different, procedures. And so, as for funding for, these climate change practices, they are as broad and as vast, and they are not difficult. But if you do want specific ones that may suit your needs, you may also be contact us. We have a mapping of funding sources, the websites, their procedures that we have compiled, but they are available. But of course, they may not all be fit for the purpose that you are seeking them for. And sir, of course, because of our land use challenges, particularly where we develop our cities in Accra, sprawling, everybody, wanting to tile their own houses, and the precipitation changes means that it could be raining severally, just before you enter the city, but you won't find a drop. However, all that channel flows into the ocean. They have to find, flow into the ocean. The obstructions as well may mean that you may have seen not enough rain to, necessitate, that flood, but then you would experience it. And we are experiencing it, and we would continue to experience it unless we deliberately redefine our land use, the way we develop our land, or the way we develop our cities. And so much of it is also not one sector's activity. it is a concerted sector. It also includes the building sector. It includes, the agri sector. It includes sectors such as mine. It includes planners, architects, and all building, the built environment professionals as well. And so, but also individuals, because usually, the challenge in most of our cities. The permitting process is a challenge. So people buy the land without recourse to the zoning practice in the area and then go and develop it anyhow. But these are challenges that also we can address, but some of them are not addressed in one generation, unfortunately. But we still try. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Let's move on quickly. It's getting close to lunchtime, but let us pray with you to warm up for the next presentation. This presentation is very dear to our heart. It's going to be delivered by a traditional leader who has got many years' experience working as a public officer in at least 3 ministries in Ghana here. He is trained outside this country and I had his Master of Arts, Bachelor of Science degrees. The topic that he is going to present is the history, culture, and traditions in Ghana with focus on tourism sites within the whole province and its environment, or environs, not environment, environs, that's neighborhood. It can stretch to Keta area, Adakulu, Hohwe, Avatime area. Now, this high-profile personality was the Chief Director, immediate past, of Ministry of Railways and Development. He served in the same capacity at the Ministry of Transport, the same capacity at the Ministry of Tourism. He's a historian. Currently, he is the President of Avatime Traditional Council and the Paramount Chief of Avatime Traditional Area. No less a person than Osie Ajatekpo the 7th. He is in our midst. May I respectfully invite Osie to give us his presentation.
Thank you very much, the MC, for this occasion, and for the nice words that he has said about me. One thing that he forgot to say, and that which has brought me here, is that I'm a climate change champion. Why do I say that? I recognize that Mother Earth is the one that sustains us. And so, if we are at loggerheads with Mother Earth, then we are going to destabilize our existence on Earth. And so when he called me a few days ago that there was this conference by African Presbyterian men in action against climate change. I said, wow. For once, there is a concerted effort by the people of God to come together and talk about the climate and what we are doing against the climate, for which the climate is also responding the way God has created it to us. And then we tend to blame the climate for doing what we are doing. We should blame ourselves first, because we are the cause of what is happening. The moderator of the Evangelical Presbyterian Church of Ghana, the moderator of the Assembly, Lieutenant Colonel BDK Agbeko, and I understand Right Reverend Professor J.O.Y. Manti, the moderator of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana, was also here, or is here with us. The clerk of the General Assembly, distinguished guests, I stand on the existing protocols to deliver my admonition to fellow evangelical Presbyterians. And for those of you who are from outside Ghana, the traditional welcome from Ghana is to you. You are welcome. And I believe that the few days that you are going to spend here will be days that you will not forget. And so I want to thank the organizers of this conference for thinking about Ghana and for making sure that this conference takes place. But of course, our gratitude should go to the Almighty God who has made it possible that this conference is taking place today. May I state that for me, climate change is everybody's business. And so action against climate change is everybody's business. And so the theme that you succinctly and on point on this issue is for us as traditional leaders and chiefs in the various communities very, very important and very apt. My presentation topic is the history, culture, and traditions of Ghana, with focus within Ho and its environs. Permit me, Reverend Moderator, to say that, yes, in the Volta region, there are over 100 traditional areas, and each traditional area has a paramount chief. And so I may have the knowledge and the expertise to talk about Volta region in general, but I may not have that skill to talk about the specific issues that paramount chiefs are doing in their area. But suffice it to say that as a member of the Volta Region House of Chiefs, we have been meeting and discussing issues about our culture, our tradition, and our history. And as all of you may know, I mean, we are in an internet age. So if you want to talk about history, just Google it, and then you find your information. My focus now is what is happening as far as climate change is concerned. And let me say that before the invasion of Africa or Ghana, God made man in his own image and endowed him with the spirit, the intellect, the creativity, and love for the environment. And so we need to adapt our activities to the requirements of Mother Nature. And in Africa, and particularly in Ghana, in Avatime, we regard Mother Nature as a woman. If all of you know what the role of a woman is in a family, then you can link it up with the role of Mother Nature to our existence, because the woman is the person who nurtures life. So in the same vein, Mother Nature and the environment nurture us, our lives. And so if we go against it, then we are digging our own death pit and singing our own dirges before we go to where our ancestors came from. And so culture and practice of the traditional authorities in Ghana are to preserve what endowed us. Our forebears created what we call groves, and they christened them sacred groves. Groves are forests and environments that our forebears naturally relate to the Maker, because anything that our forebears did not understand, they related it to nature and God, and they see God in that. And so our forebears created groves in order to protect the environment. But unfortunately, our forebears were not enlightened or lettered as we are today. Our development is based on the destruction of the environment. And so when we have to take action in order to preserve climate change, we need to take action that is embedded with our traditional local knowledge, because without that we are failing. And as one of the greatest men said, any problem that is created in Africa must have an African solution. You don't expect anybody to come from outside Africa to come and teach us how we can solve our own problems, because we have created our own problems. And so our fathers, in whose stead we are standing today, acting today, have their own local language, local knowledge in dealing with the environment. So Presbyterian Men's Fellowship, my charge to you this afternoon is not to forget about the local language that has been preserved and left down for you to solve our problems, especially problems that relate to climate. And the change that we need is for us to have a change of mindset as men of God, to begin to relate to the environment as God wants us to relate to. Let me quote one Kwesi Yerenchi in a book, in a presentation that he said, Sociology of Religion, volume 61, number 3, 2000. And he says, religion often provides direct protection for wild and cultivated plants and animals. Many cultures have holy places, including mountains, which humans may approach only for religious purposes, if at all. Rivers or forests may be sacred environs where wildlife and vegetation are not to be disturbed. And so that summarizes the topic that I am about to say, and says that we as religious men have a duty embedded in religion, embedded in God's own image, that we need to protect our environment. And so when the Bremen Church or the Bremen Mission came to Ghana in the early 18 or 1700s, they also identified the need to provide protection for the environment. In Afatime, where I come from, that is where we live, and we are proud to be associated with the environment that God has given us. And in Ghana, the highest human settlement point or human habitat is found in Afatime. And so this morning when I woke up, I put a coconut oil in a bottle, hoping to use it the following morning, this morning, for something. When I woke up, it solidified. The coconut oil, those of you who know coconut oil, it doesn't easily solidify. But this morning, I found it to my amazement. Of course, I shouldn't be amazed because that is the climate that we have there. And so, it tells us that it is important for us to begin as men of God to look at what we can do, the charge that God has given us as men of God, working with traditional leaders to make sure that we stem the tides of climate change. I had a question when I came that what do we do when the last speaker was speaking? Question is, what do we do, but what can I do? Because everybody here comes from an environment. Everybody here comes from a village. Everybody here comes from a town. And we see things that happen around us every day that are agents to disturb our climate. What are we going to do? So the question is, what can I do? And so if you're able to answer that question, I am sure when the other person also answers that question in a collective way, we are going to answer our questions as to how we can get our environment protected. I want to charge you as Presbyterian men here who are ambassadors, because you have come here to learn and to go and disseminate, that never shy away from traditional authorities. Always work together with them. Because in every village in your country, in every town in your country, there is a traditional ruler. Forget about the politicians who have come to usurp some of the powers that the traditional authorities have because of their quote-unquote selfish interest. But they predicate that one as development. No, that may not be. And I dare say that you, as men of God, trying to propagate the word, work hand in hand with our traditional authorities. Our forebears established celebrations, festivals, and other celebrations that give credence to the fact that if you relate to yourselves as human beings in the first place, then you'll be in the better position to relate with your environment. Why do you have to hunt an animal in the forest for meat? Well, maybe that's what God has given to us. But we know that the environmentalists say that in certain times of the year, you don't hunt animals because that is when they give birth to your animals. But our civilization has ignored that to the extent that bush hunters and those of you who enjoy bushmeat go out there and hunt these animals. Because the ecosystem, they also belong to the ecosystem. They also have the right to live. I know the environmentalists say that. And so it is for us as people who have a higher IQ in all the creations of God, we have to behave in a manner that we cannot disturb our environment. So in Afatime, we have what we call the Amu Festival or Mountain Brown Rice Festival that we celebrate. We have the puberty rites in Adakulu near here. Those of you who want, when you go out, you see a very imposing mountain like a lion sitting down, which is the Adakul Mountain, very imposing. We have waterfalls all over. And I always say that in the Volta region, we pride ourselves as a microcosm of Ghana. Because everything that you want in Ghana, every tourism product that you have in Ghana, every tribe that you have in Ghana, every way of life, food that you have in Ghana, every song that you have in Ghana, you can find it in the Volta region. And so from the coast, you have the sea. And then when you travel inland, you have the mountains, you have the caves, you have the waterfalls. And then close by to the west of Volta, the Volta region, you have the magnificent Volta Lake. That gives us power in Ghana. And then when you travel north, you have the savannah. And so the geographical placement of Ghana can be seen in the Volta region. No other region in Ghana has that. And so when you are here in Ghana, especially those of you who are in the Volta region for the first time, don't worry to go to Kumasi or don't worry to go to Tamale. You are here in a microcosm place that we call the Volta region. Travel to the south, you get your sea, your lagoons, come inwards, you have the mountains, we have monkey sanctuaries here, we have waterfalls here, the waterfalls, the Afajatu mountain, which is the highest mountain in Ghana, is here in the Volta region. The second highest mountain is here in the Volta region. The third highest mountain, the Jebobo mountain, which unfortunately has been carved out of Volta region, is also in the Volta region. And so we are proud to be Voltaians, but we have a responsibility to also protect our environment, and so we do that at the level of our traditional authorities and at the level of our communities. So I want to charge you that, as I said earlier on, this is a topic that has been dealt with by the experts. And all the questions that you have asked. But the one dimension that I want you to look at is that you, as men of God, never use our traditional leaders as a point of convenience. When the traditional authorities or the communities are organizing their community festivals, please, when they form the planning committees, make time to join them in their planning committees. You may have a godly outlook of the planning to be given. What normally is done is that during such festivals, they call the pastors to come and give the opening prayer and the closing prayer. We believe that, or I believe that you can do more than that, because you are living in the community where the constituents in that community also belong to the chief. The constituents in that community from which you draw your membership also belong to the community. And so we are all doing what we say the work of God, giving salvation and development to our people. My humble take on these matters is that in the development of the ecotourism sites, the preservation of culture, and brand promotion of festivals, the church, being the voice of dissent and the mouthpiece of saints, angels, and the supernatural God, Aya. We call God in our Batimi language, Aya. Aya Mapo. Aya Mapo means that which nobody has given birth to. The air that nobody has given birth to. And so, as voice of dissent and mouthpiece of saints, angels, and supernatural God, Aya, you should not sit aloof. get into the trenches with the traditional rulers, the development associations, to fashion out outcomes that will push our nation out of the current narrative. The effects of climate change on tourism sites, the example that my good friend gave, that a small stream that is behind his house, after one rainstorm, not less than 5 minutes, it became a stream. It's real. So climate change is real. Climate change is real, and climate change action is everybody's business. I want to leave that with you, and I want to thank you all for the opportunity that you have given me to share my thoughts with you. I'm sure we can continue the conversation from here, and I believe that the next time that we meet around, all of you will have a story to tell. That story that says that do not treat traditional rulers as outcasts. Work together with them in areas of our development. Work together with them in areas of environmental cleanliness. Work together with them in areas of child care, mother care. I've been attending seminars, and most times I attend conferences of women. When women go to such conferences, they go with their husbands. But today, I'm sure an occasion will come where you also have a few women sitting with you throughout the session. Because for all you know, they may have something to offer. It is not only in the bedroom that they give you advice, they can also go out with the affirmative action that we have on the continent. They also have something to tell you outside. It is important that let's work together with the women. As we work together with the women, we work together with the chiefs and the community leaders for us to stem this climate change. Coincidentally, I am a member of an international organization called Extinction Rebellion, which is founded in the UK, which is empowering communities to take action and to go back to their roots, to be able to mobilize themselves against ecocides, genocide, whatever you have. And I believe that those sites that we have are not going to continue for long if all of us work together. On this note, I want to thank you very much, and I continue to say climate change is everybody's business. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the standing ovation for the overlord of Avatime. He is also executive committee member of the National House of Chiefs in charge of social interventions and welfare. Osie Ajatepo the seventh. Osie basically means Tobiga. He superintends the whole traditional area of Avatime. Thank you, Osie. Yeah, I come from the same area with some few people seated here. Yeah, so it is time for lunch. But you know, he's a social psychologist. In somebody who is trained in the Eastern world, he's a Russian trained too. These are people who study behavioral attitude. Knowing very well that we travel far from the morning up to this stage, he summarized what he was supposed to present. And then he did it perfectly. Once again, let's give him an applause. I'll say thank you, thank you. We are breaking for lunch, and after lunch, we are not coming back here again. We are going to our conference room for the remaining plenary sessions. That is where we shall do it till Saturday and Sunday. Then we call it bye-bye to each other. But for now, we are breaking for lunch. You know our lunch base already. So when you go, you get your coupons. 1 hour lunch, take a little rest. Then we meet at the conference room for our plenary session. Thank you today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your contributions. But the discussion, the conversation goes on. Any announcements?
Appreciate our moderator or our coordinator, our MC. We would love to make few announcements as the conference, and we appreciate moderator and also Paramount Chief for really giving us a very rich direction on how we should approach our culture and even the traditions. When you are coming in, I could see some of us were worried. The way we've grown in our other countries and the way culture, the traditional culture, because we know culture is dynamic, is understood. You've brought in a very rich perspective. And as scholars in our midst, and also Christian men, we have a lot, and I believe sooner, if we get a chance, we can engage. We have the GS, kindly, and also the DGS, requesting for a photo session. We cannot humbly allow the moderator with the entire team and also the Paramount Chief. With all this team, we go for lunch and we miss this part for the photo. So, DGS, kindly.
That's all. We have done everything.
Organize here, the photos.
Yeah,
where?
yeah. Yeah, so we'll organize the photo is outside or here. We can do it outside. No? The entrance. Okay, so the experts say you should go outside. We'll take it by there. So we will be informed from there.
To guide us through the rest of the program to Sunday, be part of our conversation and direct our way of thinking and the way we put things together. May the blessings of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit come upon us and remain with us now and always. Amen. Thank you.
Amen.